back, everybody. A3R here again. Going to be doing another video here with PRJKT68. So what I'm going to be working on this weekend is repainting the interior, the floor pans, from the firewall probably back to the underneath the rear seat pan. So let's see what we got to work with right now. All right, so here is the interior we have. Went ahead and took out the front seats that I have. It's already been stripped. As you know, if you've been watching some of the other videos, this car has already been media blasted and it's been primed with POR-15. This is the passenger side that I did in some of the last videos. This had a little bit of surface stress in it. Went in and covered that up with fiberglass. So what we're working on right now is going to be actually painting the rest of the floor pan. Like I said, going to be going from the firewall, the floor pans, the seat risers, and back to underneath the rear seat. I'll take these out as we move forward. But I do want to touch on a couple of things first. As you can see, it's been sitting a while. It's got some dust in it. It's got some leaves in it just from sitting. So first thing we're going to do is clean all that out, vacuum it, and then work on two items. So in the corner here, you can see what looks like weld marks all along here. But this is actually seam sealer that is put in at the factory to cover up the seams from the different joints and the different sections of the sheet metal. Up front, it looks pretty good. The passenger side was cleaned up when I did the floor pan, when I put in the fiberglass. So these are the areas we're going to work with cleaning up. As you can see, there's some separation here with the seat riser to the floor pan, and there's some pretty good cracking here, and on the passenger side you can see where it's already flaked out. So this is what you want to work with. Like I said, this is not a concourse restoration. I don't have the means to media blast this again once that I clean this out. So the stuff up in the front, all of this, you can see there's no cracks in this. So this is pretty good. This is set in all right. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. There's no separation between the metal, nothing significant. So all of that I'm going to leave in. The stuff in the back where it's cracked, and as you can see, that just flakes right off. So that doesn't have a good bond between the seam sealer and the metal. So you want to clean that up. All of this stuff that really flakes off, as you can see, there's a pretty good gap here. You can see where it goes between the seat riser and the floor pan. You want to clean as much of this stuff out as you can. As you can see, I've started working on the rear of the driver's side. Like I said, a lot of this stuff, if it flakes off like this, you want to get it out. You want to get all of this really loose stuff out, because that's gonna allow moisture to get in between these cracks, and you're gonna get rusting way faster than you want to get. So you want to start pulling it out and then cleaning it up. This passenger side I've already got cleaned up pretty good. All I've done so far is scrape that out. Using any kind of scraping tool that you can. I've been using either a flat blade screwdriver, a scraping tool that's got a razor blade on the end of it will work well to scrape that out, and then clean it up with a wire brush. And once all of that is cleaned up, I was actually just using simple green to get the residue out. As you can see right here, it starts to get seated pretty good. It's no longer flaking. So once I get the rear seat out, once I get the framing out for the rear seat, I'll see what it looks like underneath. But any of this stuff that flakes out like this, I'm going to go ahead and clean up and get that down as close as we can with bare metal. As you see here, the POR-15 is stuck pretty good. It's adhered pretty good. So all you want to do is get this roughed up. So when you go ahead and spray down any kind of paint, I'm probably going to use, again, I'll use a Rust-Oleum satin black paint, because that way I know if there is a little bit of rust in here, there's a little bit of bare metal, it'll coat that pretty good, and it'll be a pretty good rust preventative. So I'll use the same paint that I used on the front up here, which is going to be just a satin black Rust-Oleum. So we'll go ahead and I'll mount the camera somewhere close, and we'll work on this a little bit. So I'll kind of show how I'm just flaking this out and seeing where this comes to where I have to pull it out and where it's solid enough for me to leave in. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get this rear seat out. It's pretty simple to remove the seat. The back of the seat comes out first. It simply just lifts it straight up. It tilts it out, and it comes out. It just sits on these two brackets when it slides in and drops in place, and that's all that holds it in. And the bottom just pulls out. Pretty simple, pretty old school, nice and easy to work on. But we'll get this out and we'll start cleaning this up. Okay, so the first place I'm going to work is this corner right here. Not too worried about the dirt right now, the dust, because all of that's going to come out afterwards. What I want to do first is scrape out some of this old seam sealer around here. So like I said, this is fairly solid back here. It's got a little bit of cracks in it, but I think that's going to be covered up with the paint. I think that's going to seal up okay with the paint. So like I did on the passenger side, I'll probably stop right in here. I'll get this loose stuff out really quick, and then I'll scrape it down like the other side did. I'll get that down to bare metal, and we'll work on that as we go. All right, so somewhere along the way, the camera tilted down and wasn't showing exactly what I was doing. But as you can see, I've got this cleaned up pretty well. As you're working in here, you'll be able to feel where the seam sealer and your primer or paint is bonded pretty strongly to the metal. So I don't want to take out any more than I have to. I want to minimize how much work I'm going to do. Because like I said, this is a budget buildup. It's not a concourse car. This is just going to be a weekend car. It's not going to go to very many shows. It's not going to be entered for anything, you know, highly desirable cars like that have to be done to a high standard. This is just done in my driveway. This is work that I'm doing by myself. I don't have the means to media blast this. I don't have the means to respray it other than rattle cans. So I really want to minimize how much work I create for myself. I could come in with, you know, a portable bead blaster and take all of this down and bead blast everything. Then I'd have to paint it again. And if I don't do it within a weekend, we start to have issues with rust. So I'm going to leave this where it's at right now. The next thing we need to do is decide, are we going to prime first or are we going to seam seal first? So I'm going to do my research. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to see what kind of seam sealer I'm going to use. So like I said, I did a little bit of research on how to lay down the seam sealer. And from what I found on most of them, you want to put them down on bare metal. So I went to my local parts store, which for me is O'Reilly's, and picked up some seam sealer. And this is what I got. This is all they had. So this is the only option I had to get it done today. And this is U-Pole fantastic seam sealer UP0955. The instructions say that it bonds to anything, but it mostly lists bare metals. So I'm going to follow that instruction. Like I said, it's right here on the back. Galvanized steel, metals and galvanized steel should be abraded with 80 to 100 grit sandpaper, so I'm going to do that. Before I started the video, I went in and did a little bit more cleanup on the interior. Found a couple more spots where the seam sealer underneath the rear seat bed was a little bit loose, so I cleaned some of that stuff up. And then, like I said, once I get the seam sealer down, I'm going to go ahead and paint it. And this is what I've used on quite a bit of the rest of the car. This is Rust-Oleum satin black So what I like about this is that it's got the custom spray. It's got 5 different settings. You can do high output, standard, low output, vertical or horizontal, just by turning the knob here at the top. What I've been using the most is hopefully that will focus. That's number 3, which is the low output, which is nice because the spray can itself already limits how much of the aerosol comes out. So it makes it a lot easier to put in thin, light coats, which is how you want to do your paint whenever you're painting anything. Keeps you from having runs, drips, bubbles, errors, and stuff like that. So it's nice that they put that in there. It's very, very helpful, especially for the bigger projects. Makes the can last a lot longer. Gives you a finer, more uniform coat on your paint. So let's go ahead and look at where I'm at right now, once again, on the inside of this 68 Mustang. Okay, so here is the floor pans. As you can see, I've swept it up. These are the areas I've been working on, started working on yesterday. There's one spot here, one spot on the passenger side where the seat riser goes to the tunnel. At the base of the rear seat. This is what I found this morning. There's a little bit right here in the corner of the wheel well that was loose. Some stuff on the top of the tunnel, along the side of the tunnel, and a little bit on the passenger side where the pan bends up to go from the base to the side of the inner fender well, inner wall, by the rear window. Again, this is the passenger side right at the back of the footwell for the rear seat passengers. So I'm going to go ahead and keep cleaning this up. As you can see, I've already wiped it down pretty good. This so far has just been done with simple green, just to get the majority of the heavy dirt out. But one thing I want to touch on. So this area, as you can see, it's been welded in. This isn't factory. This looks like it's been done afterwards. Dots like this, these tack welds, is where it comes factory. So this has been worked on sometime in the past nearly 60 years. So like I said, this is 1968. It was built in December of 67. So it's getting close to 60-year-old car. So work like this is very common. So what I want to do mostly, I mean, it's not super important because this floor pan is solid. Underneath the floor pan, there's some openings. You can see here in that hole, that's the opening where the bolt for the seat would go through, where you would actually mount your front seat. And under that, there's 4 openings in the bottom of the floor pan, but that's covered up with a rubber grommet. So the biggest thing I'm worried about is where this was welded. If there's pinholes between the seat riser and the tunnel, if there's pinholes in there, you want to make sure that is sealed up. Any of this is sealed up. Any of this is sealed up. So that's where you want to put your seam sealer. At the back, same thing. This is actually 2 different sections of metal. You want to make sure that this is sealed. And you can see right here, that goes all the way through the base of the car. So as you're driving, if you don't have this sealed up, you're going to get water splashing in here. You're going to get water that's getting in and sitting inside of your carpet. And then that's going to get wet. Then the water's not going to evaporate quick enough, and you're going to get rust inside of the car, which is what happened in the front passenger floor pan. Same thing with the back. You can see there's a little hole here. I'm not sure if that's factory, but there's also a hole right here in the corner that needs to be sealed. So any of these holes, especially the holes that are exposed to the underside of the car where water or moisture can get up and get inside of the carpeting, you want to make sure you can get those as sealed up as possible. Like I said, there's another one over here where you can see those two different sheets coming together. There's a pretty wide gap, and there's a pretty big hole right between those two sections of metal that need to be sealed. Also, along with this seam right here, you want to make sure it's sealed up. So I'm going to go ahead and go in and work on that. So as you work in there, if you notice that first section I saw, you could see where the paint was on the tonal. It was pretty thick. You want to knock that down as much as you can. I'm going to use that 80 and 120 grit sandpaper to scuff that up and try and make it as feathered and as smooth as I can before I lay down my paint. Scuff up the metal before I lay down the seam sealer. You don't want to feel too much of a ridge between your bare sheet metal and your paint. If you get that, again, it's hard for the next coat of primer or paint to stick and adhere and have a really good contact surface between your different coats. So you want to make that as smooth as you can. Underneath here, it's not about looks, because this is all going to be covered up by the sound deadening and then the carpeting. So you're never going to see this, but the issue comes in when, if you get moisture that comes in from the underside of the car, the carpeting stays wet and you start to rust like I had in the passenger floor pan. So that's what you want to try and prevent. Not super concerned with it with this car, because like I said, this is going to be a weekend car. It's not going to be driven in inclement weather. I'm going to try and avoid any kind of driving it in the rain. It's going to be pretty well babied. Most likely it's going to be garage kept. Right now it's in a portable garage, so it stays out of the elements, it stays dry, and I hope to keep that in the future. But like I said, you want to prevent any kind of moisture getting between your sheet metal, your floor pans, and your carpet, because that stays wet and it doesn't dry. You'll first start to notice it. You'll get in the car and it smells like mold. And if you ever smell that, you want to attack that as soon as you can. Get the carpeting out, get it cleaned, and see where that water is sitting, and prevent that rust from growing as you move forward. If you just let that stay wet and you let that mold smell stay in there, if you leave your windows cracked, you might not ever even notice that mold smell until it's too late, until you have to get into an area where, like I did with the floor pan on the passenger side, where that has to be repaired. I was lucky, mine was pretty much surface rust, and I was able to cover it up with fiberglass resin. Hopefully that holds up. I think it will. It's pretty solid. Or you have to go to the further extreme and have it cut out and have a new floor pan welded in, and then all these seams resealed. So I'm going to go in. First thing I'm going to do is start sanding this stuff down, rough sand around the metal, and then after that I'm going to go in with some rubbing alcohol and clean up any of the debris, any of the oils from my hands, any of the oils that are left over from the original seam sealer, and get all of that out so it can be prepped for laying down the seam sealer, and then follow that up by the paint. So let me get on that. Probably not going to videotape this because it's pretty boring to watch. So we'll come back after I get it prepped, after I get it sanded, and after I get the alcohol down to clean up any of the residual oils. All right, be back in a few. Project 68.